Don't come closer, Grayson. You lost that right 6 years ago.
Lost it? Or had it stolen from me?
Tell me the truth. Were they mine all along?
6 years ago, I disappeared while carrying his children to save a life. Today, under the gallery lights, he looks at me like a stranger, until one question shatters the silence. Were they mine all along? Hello, my name is Amelia Carter. Before I share my full story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Hit the like button and subscribe if you believe love and family are worth fighting for. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The rain hammered against the museum windows as I stood before Dali's melting clocks, tears streaming down my face. I wasn't crying for attention. God knows I'd given up on that luxury years ago. I was crying because those warped timepieces looked exactly like my life. Distorted, running out, meaningless. Powerful piece, isn't it? A deep voice startled me. I swiped at my cheeks, mortified. A man in an expensive suit stood beside me, studying the painting with genuine interest. Everything about him screamed money, from his Italian leather shoes to the way he held himself, like the world bent to accommodate him. Don't, I said sharply. Don't pretend you care about my tears. I'm not some damsel looking for a rich savior. His eyebrows shot up. I was talking about the painting. Heat flooded my face. Of course he was. I mumbled an apology and turned to leave, but my worn sneaker caught on the marble floor. I stumbled, dropping my sketchbook. It splayed open, revealing my darkest thoughts rendered in charcoal. Cages dissolving into birds, hands reaching through prison bars, quotes about love I'd stopped believing in. He picked it up before I could, his eyes scanning the pages. These are none of your business. I snatched it back, but not before seeing something shift in his expression. Not pity. I'd have walked away from pity. It was recognition, like he'd seen his own ghosts in my drawings. I'm Grayson, he said simply. Good for you. I clutched my sketchbook and fled, my mother's medical bills burning a hole in my pocket, reminding me I didn't have time for mysterious men in expensive suits. 20 minutes later, soaked and shivering at the bus stop, I realized I'd left my wallet in the museum, the one with my last $20 and my mother's medication schedule. I cursed, knowing I'd have to go back, possibly face him again. But when I returned, the security guard handed me my wallet with a note tucked inside. Your art deserves better paper. G. Inside was a business card for Grayson Hale, CEO of Hale Financial, and $500 cash. I should have thrown it away. Should have been insulted. Instead, I stood there in the museum lobby, shaking. Not from cold, but from the realization that a complete stranger had seen through my carefully constructed walls in less than 5 minutes. And somehow that terrified me more than my mother's latest diagnosis. I found him 3 days later at the diner where I waitressed nights. He sat in my section, looking hilariously out of place among the cracked vinyl booths and flickering fluorescent lights. His Armani suit probably cost more than I made in 6 months. Stalking is illegal in Massachusetts, I said, pouring his coffee without asking. So is theft. He slid my sketchbook across the table. You left this. My heart stopped. I'd torn the museum apart looking for it. How did you find you? The museum had your information from your membership. He paused. The student membership you can barely afford, judging by the payment history. You investigated me? Anger flared, hot and familiar. I was curious about someone who cries at Dali, but draws like Ketha Kollwitz. He opened my sketchbook to a page I'd titled Freedom is a Luxury. This one especially. I slammed the coffee pot down. You think knowing art makes you deep? That your money gives you the right to dig into my life? No, he said quietly. But losing someone to lupus gives me the right to recognize the signs. The diner noise faded. I sank into the booth across from him. Your mother? Sister, 8 years ago. He traced the rim of his mug. Your sketches of hands holding pill bottles. The hospital bracelet you drew in perfect detail. I know that particular hell. For the first time in years, I let my guard slip. We talked until my shift ended. About everything except the obvious. Why a billionaire was slumming in a Boston diner. Why I'd kept his money despite my pride. He showed up the next week at the community center where I taught art to kids with cancer. Just walked in carrying professional-grade supplies, no fanfare, no announcement of his wealth. He sat with 7-year-old Marcus, helping him paint despite clearly having no idea what he was doing. You're holding the brush like it's a weapon, I told him. Everything's a weapon in my world, he replied, then caught himself. I mean, I know what you mean. I guided his hand, showing him how to let the paint flow. His fingers were warm under mine, steady despite the tremor I felt run through him. That night, my phone buzzed with a news alert. Grayson Hale, heir to a billion-dollar empire spotted with mystery woman. The photo showed him leaving the community center. The headline speculated about a new romance mere months after his broken engagement to a senator's daughter. I deleted the alert and blocked his number. I had enough problems without adding billionaires rebound to the list. But the next week, he was back at the center, paintbrush in hand, as if my walls meant nothing, as if he could see right through them. "Why are you really here?" I confronted him after class 6 weeks later. The kids had left, and we were alone among finger paintings and dreams. "You could hire Picasso's ghost to teach you art." "Picasso's dead," he said, washing purple paint from his hands. "And he never painted the way you see the world, like beauty matters even when everything's falling apart." "Don't," my voice cracked. "Don't make this into something it's not." He turned, water still dripping from his fingers. "What if I told you I haven't felt real in years? That everyone wants something from me? Money, connections, status? Then I meet a woman who looks at me like I'm trying to steal her last dollar." "Aren't you?" "No, Amelia." My name on his lips felt like a confession. "I'm trying to steal something much more valuable." I should have run. Instead, I let him drive me home in his ridiculous Tesla, both of us pretending it was about the rain. He parked outside my building, a place where Teslas went to get stripped for parts, and studied the graffitied walls like they were museum pieces. "This is where I leave you," I said. "What if you didn't?" The words hung between us, heavy with possibility. I thought of my mother upstairs, probably asleep after another round of treatment. Thought of the bills piling up, the second job I'd need to take soon. "I don't belong in your world, Grayson." "Good," he said fiercely. "My world is full of liars and parasites. You're the first honest thing I've encountered in years." That night, he told me about growing up with a mother who scheduled his emotions like board meetings, about finding his fiancée with his best friend, about being so numb he'd stood on his penthouse balcony wondering if falling would make him feel something. "Then I saw you crying at real art," he whispered, and remembered what feeling looked like. I kissed him in that stupid Tesla, tasting loneliness that matched mine despite his billions. We were broken in different ways, him by abundance, me by absence, but our jagged edges fit. "No promises of forever," I warned when we finally broke apart. "I can't survive that kind of lie." "Then let me promise you today," he said, "and tomorrow, if you'll have me. One day at a time." 3 months later, he proposed in my tiny kitchen with a hair tie instead of a diamond ring. My mother, frail but fiercer than her disease, was our only witness at City Hall. Grayson's assistant Nolan stood as his best man, the only person from his world he trusted with our secret. "I can't give you normal," Grayson warned as we exchanged vows. "Normal is overrated," I replied, meaning it. 2 weeks later, the pregnancy test showed 2 lines. I sat on the bathroom floor, staring at proof that our careful plans meant nothing to fate. "We'll figure it out," Grayson said, finding me there. "Together." If only we'd known that "together" had an expiration date. Victoria Hale descended on our happiness like a plague. I'd known she'd find out eventually. Women like her always did. But I'd underestimated her cruelty. She summoned me to the 4 Seasons, her territory. I went because I was naive enough to think we could be civil. The suite reeked of old money and fresh threats. $5 million, she said without preamble, sliding a check across the marble table. "To leave, tonight." "I don't want your money." "Everyone wants money, dear. Some just price themselves higher." She sipped her champagne like it wasn't even noon. $10 million, then." I stood to leave, but she played her ace. Photographs scattered across the table like tarot cards predicting doom. Grayson with a blonde woman, their bodies too close, her hand on his chest. "Last Tuesday," Victoria purred, "while you were playing teacher." My hands shook, but my mind stayed clear. The timestamp showed 3:47 p.m. Last Tuesday at 3:47, Grayson had been helping Marcus finish his painting. Purple paint under his nails when he came home. "Nice try," I said. "But your son was with me." Her face hardened. "You're smarter than the others. Fine." The next photo stopped my heart. My mother, unconscious in her hospital bed, a hand holding a syringe near her IV port. The hand wore a distinctive ring, Victoria's own. "Lupus is so unpredictable," she mused. "Sometimes patients just fade. Wrong medication, missed treatments. Tragic, really." "You're insane." "I'm a mother protecting her legacy. You'll understand someday." Her smile could have frozen hell. "Write the letter. Tell him you lied, that the baby isn't his. Disappear, or I make one phone call and your mother's next treatment becomes her last." "There's no baby," I lied desperately. She laughed, a sound like breaking glass. Please, I've had you followed for weeks. Morning sickness at exactly 7:15. Prenatal vitamins hidden in your art supplies. You're carrying my grandchild and you'll give me what I want, or I'll take everything you love. I wrote the letter with shaking hands, each word a knife to my own heart. I never loved you. This was about money. The pregnancy was a lie to trap you. Lies that would destroy him, but save my mother. The ring, Victoria commanded. I pulled off the hair tie Grayson had used to propose. He'd replaced it with a simple band, but I still wore both. Leaving them on that cold marble felt like ripping out my soul. Good girl. Nolan will drive you to the bus station. 1 suitcase. No goodbyes. As Boston disappeared behind me, I pressed my hand to my stomach. I'm sorry, I whispered to the life growing inside me. Someday you'll understand. Love means protecting people, even if it destroys you. I just hadn't realized how much destruction one heart could take. Vermont, in winter, was a special kind of hell. Our cabin, if you could call a glorified shed a cabin, sat 40 minutes from the nearest hospital. I'd chosen it for the isolation Victoria demanded, but now, pregnant with twins and caring for my dying mother, that isolation felt like a noose. You're having a boy, too, the rural doctor announced during a rare ultrasound. Twins. I'd been wrong. Not one child who'd never know their father, but 2. The irony wasn't lost on me. Grayson had been a twin. His brother died at birth, a loss that shaped his mother's twisted need for control. Mama, I'm scared, I admitted one night, helping her to the bathroom. She'd lost so much weight, I could carry her like a child. My brave girl, she wheezed. You've survived worse than fear. Had I? Because watching the news that March, seeing Grayson announce his engagement to Charlotte Pemberton, old money, perfect breeding, his mother's clear choice, I wondered if survival was just another word for dying slowly. I painted at night while the twins tumbled inside me like acrobats. No more abstracts about freedom. Now I painted memories. Grayson's hands covered in purple paint. His face when he proposed with a hair tie. The way he'd cradled my barely showing belly, whispering promises to little Bean. Beans, I corrected the memory. 2 little beans who'll never hear those promises. Labor came during a blizzard, because of course it did. The local EMT looked terrified as I screamed through contractions in the back of his pickup truck. Just hold on, he begged, skidding through snow. Tell my mom. Another contraction stole my words. Tell her yourself, he said firmly. Sienna came first, screaming and perfect. Lila followed 3 minutes later, silent until the doctor rubbed her back. Then she wailed like she was furious at the world. I understood the feeling. They're beautiful, my mother whispered when I brought them home. She held them once, smiled, then slipped away that night as if she'd been waiting just to meet them. I buried her on a hill overlooking nothing, in a grave I couldn't afford to mark properly. The twins slept through the service, blissfully unaware that their world had shrunk to just me. That night, I found Grayson's wedding announcement in a newspaper someone had left at the cemetery. He looked hollow in the photos, like someone had scooped out his insides and left only the expensive shell. Your daddy's getting married, I told the twins, who blinked at me with his exact eyes. To someone who deserves him. Sienna yawned. Lila farted. At least they had their priorities straight. I burned the newspaper and used the ashes to mix new paint. Black for grief, gray for lies, but somehow, when I painted that night, traces of gold kept bleeding through. Hope was a stubborn bastard, even in hell. Miss Carter, Sienna put glue in Timothy's hair again. I sighed, abandoning my lunch to handle my daughter's latest crime. 6 years old and already a force of chaos. Her sister Lila would be drawing apology cards. She always did when Sienna went nuclear. Timothy said our dad left because we're ugly, Sienna informed me, unrepentant. My heart cracked. Baby, we've talked about this. Glue isn't... He was wrong, though, she continued. We're not ugly. We look just like the man on TV. The blood drained from my face. What man? The one on the news yesterday. He has my eyes. I'd been so careful. No TV, no social media, no newspapers. But kids found ways, and mine were too smart for their own good. That night, after they were asleep, I broke my rule and Googled Grayson. The first headline made me drop my phone. Hale heir postpones third engagement, sparks mental health concerns. He looked terrible. Thin, hollow, going through the motions at some charity gala. The woman beside him, another Victoria-approved clone, wore a ring worth more than I'd made in 6 years. Why don't we have a daddy? Lila had asked that morning, making Father's Day cards at school. Some families are different, I'd said, the standard line. But we're not different, she'd insisted. We're special. That's what you always say. Now I stared at Grayson's photo, wondering if he'd think they were special too. Sienna with his stubborn streak, Lila with his unexpected gentleness, both with his impossible eyes and my wild hair. A knock interrupted my spiral. My elderly neighbor, Mrs. Chen, stood outside with her grandson. "Tommy's good with computers," she said without preamble. "Show her, Tommy." The teenager handed me a tablet showing a video from someone named @InvestigateTruth. "Seen this? Some rich dude's assistant has been investigating a teacher for years. Creepy, right? But look." My face filled the screen. Recent footage of me at school, at the store, with the twins. Time-stamped, cataloged. The caption read, "Why is Nolan Park, assistant to billionaire Grayson Hale, documenting this random teacher's life?" "Turn it off," I whispered. "There's more," Tommy said. "The latest video, posted an hour ago, shows your kids at the spring concert." I ran to the bathroom and threw up, morning sickness style. Nolan knew. Had always known? Then why? Another knock. This time I grabbed the baseball bat before answering. "Amelia." Nolan stood there, looking older, grayer, sadder. "We need to talk. He's coming." "You said no visitors," I snarled. I promised to protect you from Victoria. But she's in the hospital. Had a stroke 2 days ago. Grayson's been going through her files and..." He paused. "He knows everything. I can't stop him anymore." "How long until..." "Tomorrow. Maybe tonight. He took the jet an hour ago. 6 years of running, ended by a stroke and a stubborn man who'd never learned to let go." "Mommy?" Lila stood in the hallway, rubbing sleepy eyes. "Are you crying?" I scooped her up, inhaling her shampoo and crayon scent. "No, baby. Mommy's just tired." "Is the sad man from TV coming?" Even my 6-year-old knew. Of course she did. "Maybe," I admitted. "Good," she said firmly. "He needs us. He looks lonely." Out of the mouths of babes. The charity art exhibition was my idea. Showcase student work and raise funds for supplies. I hadn't expected Channel 5 to show up. I definitely hadn't expected him. He stood by the entrance like a dark angel, all sharp angles and barely contained fury. The years had carved him into something harder, colder. But his eyes, when they found mine across the room, God, his eyes still held that recognition that had undone me 7 years ago. "Mommy, you're squishing," Sienna complained, wiggling free from my suddenly tight grip. "Sorry, baby. Stay with Mrs. Patterson, okay?" "Is that..." Lila started, then stopped. She knew. Somehow my perceptive little artist knew exactly who stood 20 feet away, vibrating with the kind of energy that preceded disasters. I forced myself to move, to put distance between him and my children. But he followed. Of course he did. We ended up in the supply closet because my life was now a cliché. "Don't," I said before he could speak. "Just don't." 6 years, he said instead. 6 years of thinking you played me, of believing I was that stupid, that blind. And the whole time... His voice broke. "The whole time you were protecting them. Protecting me. I don't know what you're talking about." He pulled out his phone, showed me a video. Security footage from that hotel, grainy but clear enough. Me sobbing as I wrote that letter. His mother standing over me like a puppet master. "She recorded everything," he said hollowly. "Insurance, probably. Nolan found it in her home safe. It doesn't matter now." "Doesn't matter?" He stepped closer, and I smelled his cologne. Same brand, because some things never changed even when everything else did. "I have children, twin daughters who think I abandoned them. You let me believe. I let you live," I snapped. "You think she would have stopped? Think she wouldn't have found other ways? At least this way you got to have a life." "What life?" He laughed bitterly. "You want to know about my life, Amelia? I've been sleepwalking for 6 years. 3 engagements I couldn't go through with because they weren't you. Drinking myself to sleep because sobriety meant remembering. That's not a life. That's a slow death." "Mr. Hale?" A small voice interrupted. Lila stood in the doorway, my fearless child who'd inherited her father's inability to follow rules. "Are you okay? You look sad." Grayson froze. I watched him catalog every feature. His eyes, my nose, his stubborn chin. I'm okay," he managed. "No, you're not," she said matter-of-factly. "But that's okay. Mommy says it's okay to be sad sometimes. Do you want to see my painting? It's about families." "Lila, honey, it's important," she insisted, taking Grayson's hand like she'd done it 1,000 times before. He looked at me, devastated and hopeful, and everything I'd spent 6 years trying to forget. 5 minutes, I whispered. Lila led him to her painting, a house with stick figures, but she'd given them all detailed eyes. 2 small figures with a taller one, reaching toward a 4th figure separated by a black line. "That's the daddy," she explained, pointing to the lone figure. He's on the other side because something sad happened. But see, I made the line with watercolors, so it can wash away. Where's your sister? Grayson asked hoarsely. Oh, Sienna doesn't paint families. She paints dragons. Want to meet her? She bites sometimes, but only bad people. And just like that, my carefully constructed walls began to crumble. The universe had a sick sense of humor, sending my daughter to do what I couldn't, bridge the gap between what was and what could have been. Victoria's arrival shattered the fragile peace. She wheeled herself in. The stroke had taken her mobility, but not her venom. Channel 5's cameras swung toward her like sharks scenting blood. My son, she announced to the room, is being manipulated by a woman who abandoned him for money. Now she's back with convenient children looking for— Shut up! Grayson's voice could have frozen hell. For once in your life, just shut up. Grayson, you threatened her dying mother. You held a syringe to a lupus patient and smiled. He pulled out his phone, connected it to the exhibition's AV system. But you were smart enough to record it. The video played on every screen. Victoria threatening me, describing exactly how she'd kill my mother. Me, sobbing as I wrote lies under duress. The timestamp that proved the twins were already growing inside me. The room erupted. Parents covered children's ears. Reporters scrambled for better angles. But I only watched Victoria's face crumble as she realized her own paranoia had destroyed her. I protected you, she whispered. Everything I did, you protected yourself. Grayson cut her off. From losing control. From facing the fact that Dad left because you're a monster, not because he didn't love me. Sienna chose that moment to march up to Victoria. You made our mommy cry? Sienna, no. I started. Nobody makes my mommy cry. She dumped her cup of paint water on Victoria's designer dress. That's what happens to villains. Sienna Marie! I scooped her up, mortified and oddly proud. She deserved it, Sienna said unrepentantly. Right, Mr. Sadman? Grayson made a sound between a laugh and a sob. Yeah, kid, she did. Security arrived to escort Victoria out. The reporters had their story. But in the chaos, Lila tugged on Grayson's sleeve. Are you our daddy? She asked simply. The room stilled. Even Sienna stopped struggling in my arms. Grayson knelt to her level. Yeah, I'm your daddy. Is that okay? Lila considered this. Will you leave again? No. Promise? I promise. Pinky, promise? Sienna demanded, still suspicious. He held out 2 pinkies. They shook solemnly. We should go, I said quietly. This isn't the place for a reunion? No. Grayson stood, his hand finding mine automatically. But I know a diner that serves terrible coffee and life-changing conversations. That closed 3 years ago. Then we'll find another one. We'll find 1,000,000 diners if that's what it takes. His thumb traced my ring finger, finding it empty. I've been carrying this for 6 years, he said, pulling out a simple band. Hoping I was wrong. Hoping you'd come back. Just hoping. Grayson, no promises of forever. He echoed my words from a lifetime ago. Just today and tomorrow, and whatever comes after that. Is he proposing? Sienna whispered loudly. Like in movies? Shh, Lila scolded. This is the important part. I looked at my daughters. Our daughters. Then at the man who'd been sleepwalking through life, waiting for us. The cameras were rolling. The gossip sites would feast for months. None of it mattered. Okay, I said simply. Okay? Okay, we'll find a diner. Okay, you can put that ring on. Okay to all of it. He kissed me there, in front of Boston's nosiest citizens and my paint-covered daughters. It tasted like coming home. Gross, Sienna announced. Beautiful, Lila sighed. Both. It was both. 1 year later, my art exhibition opened at the gallery Grayson didn't buy me. I'd earned it myself, one painting at a time. The featured piece, The Price of Forever, showed 2 hands intertwined against a storm-dark sky, gold threading through the clouds like hope refusing to die. Daddy, hold still, Sienna commanded, adding purple streaks to Grayson's hair. We'd been making Father's Day cards, and somehow it had devolved into makeovers. She's right, Lila agreed, adding glitter. Art requires sacrifice. Your children are tyrants, he told me, but he was smiling. These days, he smiled more often than not. Our children, I corrected, rescuing him with a wet towel. And you love it. I love all of it, he said simply. Even the glitter, especially the glitter. Victoria had been moved to a care facility after the scandal. She'd sent 1 letter, asking to see the girls. We'd let them decide. They'd sent her a painting, a dragon guarding a castle, with a tiny figure in the tower window. Message received. Family photo, Nolan called, corralling us together. He'd become the uncle the girls never had, the friend we both needed. As the camera flashed, capturing our glitter-covered chaos, I thought about the price of forever. It wasn't diamonds or promises or perfect plans. It was choosing each other, day after messy, beautiful day. And that was a price we could all afford.
Sometimes love isn't about holding on. It's about protecting the people who matter, even when it breaks you. But secrets have a way of surfacing, and when they do, only truth can heal what lies destroyed. Choose honesty, choose courage, because the cost of silence is always too high.